Ah! Should I turn the light? No, I don't even know. How's everybody doing? Good morning. Good morning. I know that I haven't done the part two right away because I have to do readings and prepare for the Sunday school today, right? And of course the host of other things that I'm also doing, working, preparing for the school, doing charge readings, managing Simon, my cat, and a host of so many things that I do in the course of a day. My day begins, at 4 in the morning, and then I go to bed maybe at 2 or 3. But recently I've been going to bed much earlier. Drinking my ginger tea. Alhamdulillah. Good morning, Houston, and good morning to you guys. Uh-huh. Parallel universes. Well, we're gonna jump right in. Uh, Parallel universes have a lot to do with who, who or what creates them. As above, so below. That's the basic formula. Um, I need you guys to watch the movie Back to the Future with Christopher Lloyd, I believe, and Michael J. Fox. It came out in the 80s. Um, don't pay so much attention to the bedazzle of the movie, even though that in itself is awesome, fantastic, and accurate. But that accuracy depicted in the film is relative. Just because in that movie, which did a very good description of how you create the future and parallel universes without mentioning portals or black holes, was a phenomenal feat. That movie was phenomenal in explaining something very scientific in an allegorical story. Uh, because it did not mention, or maybe it did, I don't remember. It's been over 40 years now. It might have mentioned black holes and portals. It might have. I remember the word portal, but not black holes. And in 1986, we did not know black holes existed. I mean, scientists kind of did in theory, but thank God for Stephen Hawkins, who in 2008 declared that we do have black holes in space. But, but then again, it's not surprising because, again, if we go with the formula, as above, so below, if we have whirlpools on Earth in our oceans, there are certain um, geysers or certain like Old Faithful. There are certain vortexes that are created in the ocean that creates almost like a wormhole. Um, it's a physicality. We can say the same thing of a physical black hole, but that's kind of a weak analogy. Let's find a concrete um, phenomenon that gives a suggestibility of portals. The one that comes to mind to me is the Bermuda Triangle. The Bermuda Triangle, which has a point in the Keys of Florida, the point to Puerto Rico, and then to the Bahamas. I don't know why they call it Bermuda Triangle, but it's right. It really covers the Bahamas, the triangle. And if you know the story about the Bermuda Triangle, it's Since I think the earliest recordings were maybe 1870, maybe 1850, when Amelia Earhart flew over the English Channel, heading towards the Americas, and her plane disappeared without a trace, never been seen again. Uh, they didn't know it then, but in hindsight, especially in the 1990s, I started to hear re-examination of her disappearance. Sometimes they open cases back up and study them because, like Jimmy Hoffa, what happened to him? The president of the Teamsters, right? And a lot has been spoken about Jimmy Hoffa. Uh, Still unknown what happened to him. And from time to time, they reopen those cases and they put it on TV, for old generations that still remember the story of Jimmy Hoffa. But the same thing with the Bermuda Triangle. It became a real buzzword and hype in the 1970s, really reaching a peak of interest in the late 1980s when we started to experience suddenly uh, the disappearances of ships and planes and private boats. It was always happening much earlier in history, but we had no idea. We didn't understand what was happening. Christopher Columbus in 1492 described in his logs strange lights and strange anomalies in the Bermuda Triangle, and that was 1492. We're going back almost over 500-600 years. So there's always been stuff happening in the Bermuda Triangle. Planes disappear, ships disappear. And then in the 90s, early 90s, um, pilots came forward and began to say that they did experience anomalies when they would cross the Bermuda Triangle. One famous case, um, and there have been similar pilots who have survived the experience and came back and spoke to us about it. And one of the, I'm going to give it to you in sequences. When they're in a certain altitude, you can see the landscape. Let's say you can see Florida, the Florida Keys. Then all of a sudden the plane goes cold, but cold, icy cold, where you can hear the metal of the plane expand. The metal of planes like 747s, our planes fly 32,000, 34,000 feet. It's very cold up in those heights, but our planes don't expand. The metals don't expand. Our planes are built with specific metalloids that will withstand that kind of frost from our atmosphere at 34,000 feet. But when these planes built in the 1950s, maybe now with the same alloy or metalloid that our planes are built today, would expand and almost they become disfigured. That kind of coldness does not exist in our atmosphere. That kind of coldness exists in space. So when they enter the Bermuda Triangle and a sudden coldness gripped the plane, that it began to expand the metal and break the propellers or damage the engine because it's so cold. We're talking about the coldness of space. So some portal or dimension opens into our Earth's atmosphere. And it's an open portal from space. So now the coldness of space draws into that part of our height in thousands of feet. It's not supposed to be happening. In fact, the reason why we have clouds, the reason why we have that blue dome circling the planet, That's there for a reason. That's there to protect the Earth from the coldness of space, which is like 0.0000 negative 3,400. It's immeasurable how cold it is. Something on the Earth, because the Earth has portals too. Certain meridians and around the Earth have portals. These portals don't just appear out of nowhere, but some do. Something had to have caused a portal like that in the Bermuda Triangle to open. And this portal cuts through the planet because planes disappear, ships disappear, and submarines disappear. So this portal is cutting right through the Earth going into the core. And whatever is going into it is causing a teleportation to another dimension. There was a movie done by Steven Spielberg, Close Encounters of the First Kind. It was in the 1970s. It was the first movie that was modern, that was made concerning the visitations of extraterrestrials. It was a very frightening movie because the concept of extraterrestrials coming to Earth had never entered humanity as a real possibility. I mean, in the 1950s, you have Orson Welles' War of the Worlds. Now, for that time period, a movie about hostile beings coming and killing humans was absolutely terrifying. It was so terrifying that the movie had to be pulled out. And this was in 1952 to 1957. It caused a panic. People got depressed. People got scared. And then there was invasion from Mars, where the human population actually thought there were beings from Mars coming here and attacking. They did. I believe that. Even though the movie War of the Worlds by Orson Welles was very, very scary, I saw it and it was scary to me. It was scary. And if you look at it, be like, oh, you can see you're scared. That's pussy. Then in the 1980s, with Tom Cruise, a remake was made of a War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise. That movie was more frightening than the Orson Welles movie, and it was a little bit graphic. I hope that these beings do not become like that. I don't know, but let's hope and see when I do the Sunday series in a little while. It's 7:30 in the morning here. But having said all of that, the Bermuda Triangle as a portal and as another dimension is something that, believe it or not, we created. I'm going to put a clip note here and then jump back to the pilot and when he entered the cloud and the metal of the plane began to expand. That's the first series of events. The second event was that the compasses on the planes began to lose direction. The eastern point is the direction that will point everything: the ascendant, the equator, the ecliptic, the three great circles, the equator, the prime vertical, the meridians. They all merge to the eastern point, which is the beginning of the horizon where the sun rises. When the compasses go out of control, it's almost like in that vacuum of the Bermuda Triangle, there is no direction of our planet. Our planet's obliquity wobbles, and it can be pointing, and it wobbles, and it's going like this, but that really doesn't happen. But those compasses and those planes at that altitude, it acts like the Earth is wobbling and is moving out of direction of the eastern point, pointing in this direction, this direction, this direction. The only truth in which there is no direction, no matter where you point, is space. When that occurred, when that portal opened into our planet, and these planes, the compasses were going crazy and around, they were reading space and the fact that there is no point, no reference point. That's why it was going in circles. And then the third phenomenon is that a spiral tunnel appears in the form of clouds, but like in a spiral. And the plane tries to avoid it. But the more it avoids it, the more the wormhole is like moving with the plane. Many planes have disappeared, and these people, God don't know what happened to them, disappeared to another dimension. Maybe they died. We don't know what happened. But this man, came forward and explained the entire process of what was happening. And he felt like the plane, the steering wheel was being controlled by something. And he could not control the plane. But he was communicating with NASA, or the air traffic control in Florida. And the walkie-talkies were breaking up. You couldn't hear anything. You could hear static. That static is the static of the Hawking radiation of space. That should not be coming into our planet as noise, because we have a firmament that covers and protects us from those types of noises and sounds and waves. But in the Bermuda Triangle, all mathematical laws are broken, and this occurs in there. And in that part is extremely cold. It's so cold that it defies human temperature, Earth temperature. Of course it does, because it's space. Then the fourth phase is that the person begins to feel lightweight. Lightweight. But it's funny because, and he fought and fought and fought. I mean, they did a great documentary and they showed the visual. And when he pulled out, he was lucky. He pulled out. But when he looked down at the earth, he was back in the Florida Keys. And the man was flying for a good 15, 30 minutes, struggling, but the direction was still going due north. Due south. Yeah, when he came out of that wormhole, he was right back to where he started. Time didn't look backwards. I knew that those things are real. Those portals are real. Many of you ask, are there parallel universes? And like I put in the header, the answer is yes. But it's far more deeper than just talking about parallel universes where beings exist. That's not parallel universes. Parallel universes is a little bit more complicated. And it is connected to abstract thought and concrete thought. So we just did a full circle to explain that. And we're going to put a clip here, and then we're going to go back to the physical portal of the Bermuda Triangle. Give me 2 minutes, please, while I refresh my ginger tea. Yes, yes, yes. So, what caused the portal of the Bermuda Triangle to open? And not supposed to be no portal open from here to space. Well, what happened in what is now the Bermuda Triangle was that there was a continent there called Atlantis. And it was a civilization that used crystals as a power source. Now, we're not going to go into details about Atlantis and what happened. We'll do that in Patreon, specialized content. But let me just say that the sinking of Atlantis was not a natural phenomenon. It imploded, and we humans, along with other extraterrestrial beings that were co-living with us at the time, we created that portal by imploding ourselves in that civilization, and that's what brought the age of Atlantis to a close. But the portal remained open. So just like we created a portal of this magnitude by reaching a certain level of technology and then imploding, on a miniature scale, we can also open portals or create universes. And you know how you do this? By the power of your thoughts. I'll give you an example. Let's say I get up and I say, I want to be a musician. And in my mind, I see a trajectory of the end result of me wanting to be a musician. Would I be a rapper, R&B, solo artist, opera singer? And when we're young, we entertain all kinds of thoughts, right? And have you ever had a thought like, well, I'm going to be this and that, and I can see myself getting married and having a house and having a husband, and you visualize it all the way to the end. And then maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks goes by. And you say, you know what? I think I'm just going to go and do nursing. I see myself with a white coat and holding a baby. I think I'll be a neonatal nurse. And now you create a mental picture of that, how that would look like. And the end result, you got the career as a nurse. That's great. So that comes first. And then maybe you'll get a husband. Then maybe you have a family. Maybe you'll expand. Maybe you might change careers and do something else. You see the whole trajectory. But then when the push comes to shove, you end up working at Target. They got great severance packages and great pay. And that becomes your life for the rest of your life. You give no thought about ever wanting to be a musician or a nurse. These were passing thoughts. Well, going back to the Future, which made it more of a concrete. These nursing, the aim to be a nurse and then the aim to be a musician, you've created that reality in another dimension from beginning to end. And it never reached concrete thought because you, as above so below, you never took action to physically do it. When you physically act on a thought, it becomes concrete thought. Now it's going to become reality as you're working through it. But being a nurse and being a musician, those are abstract thoughts. They did not make it to the threshold in which they become concrete thoughts. Because, like I said, it begins with you. You never took the action to actually do it. However, just because you didn't take the action to do it and you change your mind, doesn't mean that those realities that you created, even in passing, are not created. They're created from beginning to end. They never reach physical matter because your own free will chose not to entertain them and develop them further. But if you were to leave your body and go to these dimensions, you can go to the dimension where you wanted to be a musician, and you're going to see the entire life playing out like if you actually lived it from beginning to end. And then you're going to go to the nursing, and you're going to see yourself going to school for nursing, how it would have been from beginning to end. And like, oh, wow, if I would have taken this choice, my life would have developed this way. If I would have chosen this choice, my life would have developed that way. And you are creating universes, parallel universes based on your thoughts. Now, they don't make it to physical, concrete, but that doesn't mean that they're not created. You've created them. They just don't have enough energy to put the carbon matter on it to make it real because you made another choice. Let me show you an illustration. Here, right? You have a person here, and he is thinking, and these are the choices, right? We create, our reality based on the choices we make. This person wanted to be this, A. Then he wanted. Let me see if I'm looking at it correctly. Yeah, he wanted to be a musician. That's A. He entertained it, going around and around, entertained it. Then he changed his mind and go to B. Now I want to be a nurse. There you go, but change his mind. And then we go from A, B, C, D. He did not give these any. Now, just like he created it from beginning to end, there is a counter parallel to these same realities, and it will be the negative consequences of these actions. Again, here we see the duality and the polarity. Even thoughts have polarities. So if you have a thought of being a nurse from beginning to end, but then you start thinking about the problems and the difficulties to get there, that's going to play out in this B. This, as you see, there's an A here and there's an A here. There's a B here and there's a B here. These are the counter thoughts. The positive thoughts take you to a positive direction, and then the doubts and fears of these thoughts in this opposite polarity. When you don't give it enough energy to entertain it because you change your mind, they cancel each other out and becomes absolute zero. This is mathematical. We call this in high school algebra parallelogram. I remember high school geometry. This is why we learn math in school, because then when we come into the real world, we have to apply it. So this here, we have two planes that cancel each other out and becomes absolute zero. The will of the person and his belief, and the doubts and fears in equal proportion to his will and belief. And they cancel each other out, and the person does not move forward with these thoughts. Then he'll entertain a thought that he feels more realistically he can fulfill. And that's the one that's going to survive this annihilation to absolute zero and become actual physical manifestation of those thoughts. But just because this cancels out and becomes zero in the sense that it doesn't become physically manifested, doesn't mean that these worlds don't exist somewhere. They do. Everything in nature is recorded. There isn't anything in nature that is not recorded. And this was mathematically proven. Here we have really. The devil really is early. Come on now. Okay. So, do you see that? I also wanted to segue into another concept of parallel or multi-dimensional or multi-universes. As above, so below. Just like God or Gaia creates universes, we also create universes through our thoughts. Now, this second diagram is the Milky Way galaxy. We are right here at the tail end of the third arm of the spiral. Look at all these stars. These are all suns with planets orbiting around them, just like ours. You mean to tell me that we are the only ones here? That's us. Look at all this shit. You mean to tell me that we're that arrogant to think that we are the only ones? You guys better wake up. There's a lot of beings, and sooner or later, they're going to be knocking on our door. It is inevitable. Inevitable. And it has happened before. Just look at National Geographic, Nat Geo, Ancient Aliens. Nothing is new under the sun. All has been here before. Just like they came once, they'll come again. And this is written in the Bible. I just have to draw this to give you, to overwhelm you with the vastness of possibilities of life and dimensions and interdimensions and multi-universes. That our problems and our dramas and our issues is as insignificant as a drop of sand in the beach. Considering the bigger picture of all of this, it makes our concerns very small. This is the wonder of God. Now, this concept is in Matthew's. Remember, the disciples and Jesus had to speak in parables because the church was killing anybody that was not going with the laws of the church, which defied this. Because in those days, we had no idea that universes existed. In those days, the earth is the center of the universe, not the sun. Galileo was very smart in painting the Mona Lisa and putting that truth in the form of a painting, because had he spoken it out, or Ptolemy, that would have been killed by the church, the clergy. So the church began its reign of terror and wars against this type of truth from the very beginning of the Piscean age. So, just give me your perspective, a perspective. We will maybe speak more on it, but not now, because I do want to finish the weekly readings. We still got Virgo, Pisces, and Sagittarius and Gemini. And then in a little while, I'm going to go into our Sunday school. Give your donations, give your tithes. That was wonderful what you guys did. $100 is not bad for 53,000 of you. And it was very good. It was very good. And it showed exchange of currency. Because you will be getting the truth with the Bible being recorded. And I'm going to begin with the book of Revelation. Okay, so afterwards, after I do that, if you want to read, call me 281. This is why I sound like an infomercial. 281-690-8825. That's 281-690-8821. Donate Cash App, HABAKU number 5. Because I don't do this. It's like I have to memorize the script. NK, Habakkuk. Okay, and the ZELLE is 347-485-6258. Okay, and of course you can also do PayPal to the link to People's Astro. I hope you enjoyed this, and in a little while we will go into the Bible Sunday decoding. Hope this resonates.